scheduled work sessions for the budget. Since our last meeting, Sue has gone through diligently looking at current revenues and adjusted the revenues to reflect next year what we anticipate mirroring this year's revenues. And that picked up the revenues about $100,000.
How much?
Could you say that again?
I
A little louder?
don't have it in front of me.
Oh.
How much did it kick up the revenues?
This side of the table can't hear.
Do we have that piece of paper?
Well, it's compared this to what we gave you before. And
We added the assets, the sale of
okay.
the building.
Then she added the assets
Yeah.
that we will be receiving for the sale of the building and the piece of property. That $650,000 is in there, but you've already expressed a desire to do something with those funds other than use them for operations. So back that out, the revenue increase is about $100,000. Is that right? This figure?
40,000 sound closer?
Maybe.
And that's taking into consideration the loss of rent off the property.
Right.
So the difference now in terms of if you that figure, it's subtotal revenues on the second page, minus the 650 is 196. $1,965,963.
So will the rent proceeds, will that 32 still go on to next year's, or do we need to drop the 32 on the rent proceeds?
That is the farm leases, so that will still continue
Oh, that'll still
on.
be there. Okay, thank you.
But you're really not getting 600,000, right? You still got to pay off
We
40
gotta
something.
pay off the lights,
Yes.
of 46,000.
We got 46,000 left on that.
Yeah, what?
The lighting
The
loan,
lighting.
energy loan.
Oh, that's in, yeah.
When's
The
that last
light-
payment due? That last payment?
So what is our obligation there to pay it off when we sell the building?
We just have to pay off the loan. It's a loan. We could keep making payments on it. Hmm?
I think we have one more year after this year left.
Yeah. Where are those payments?
It's in legislative, under the energy loan.
In a year's, what's a year's debt service on that?
It was 90, right at 10,000.
A year.
Yes.
So it'd be to the advantage to pay it off,
If we paid it off, we'd
right, save
we'd
2,000.
reduce that line item in the legislative budget by $10,000.
So, say that again, your comment about this year as compared to projected next year. We're saying we are projecting next year to be 100,000 ahead? Or this
I
year?
said she adjusted the revenues from the original documents that you received to reflect what we anticipate getting the balance of this year. So she did, what she did was, what were our revenues last year? She carried those over for this year's budget. Now she's saying, what are the anticipated revenues this year, which are arguably higher than last year's? And those are the figures she used on all the revenue line items.
We're going to carry more cash over.
Right.
Do we know what the anticipated tax revenue is once those two properties go back on the tax rolls?
I can calculate, I haven't calculated that. That would increase the property tax. I don't know what
Wouldn't be that much.
Well, because what's our portion of that
Wasn't,
overall property tax?
Hmm?
wasn't Peter like about 11,000?
Do you know, Joe, what that percentage is that we get over the whole?
I think 2, isn't it?
No, that's sales tax.
Or sales tax, yeah.
Well, but the assessment on PIVA isn't on the real estate, it's on the lease. So that 11,000 figure is what the assessor determined was due on the leasehold value, on the leasehold interest. The assessment's going to be based on whatever she thinks it's worth.
But they'll take into account equipment and everything, don't they? Or do they
Yes.
just do the building?
No, it's equipment and everything.
The equipment's personal property, that's already on tax rolls.
Gotcha.
Oh.
Can I change the subject really quick? What is capital lease proceeds? It is 4511.
That is the money that comes in for the police cars. We have to, the lease that we take out, we have to account for the full lease.
Okay. So will that be a reoccurring thing?
Like next year, if they buy 2 more cars, yes.
It'll continue to be around the same, I
I
would
mean, it'll
assume.
come in and then you'll see it go out in their
Right.
revenue. I mean, in
Yes.
their expense.
So what is left for us to discuss that is going to affect this?
Either adopt the budget kind of as it's been presented, as we have in the past, and then make budget adjustments at the end of the year to reconcile the accounts to be what actually happened. But if what's projected here happens, you're going to use cash reserves in order to fund the operations if nothing changes.
What I was asking was, what have we not talked about that is not reflected? Like, we haven't discussed employee raises. So
No.
those numbers are not reflected on this.
Correct.
What else is not reflected on this?
That's the only thing that's not in there.
Okay.
And then the agreement that you guys are gonna pass tonight on the streets will have to be added.
Because that expenditure, well, that work won't be finished in this fiscal year. So,
It'll have to go into next year's budget.
Okay.
but it's coming out of this year's, your cash carryover will fund that. It won't show it. I mean, we show them in the cash carryover, but that's just money that didn't get spent out of
And
this
this-
fiscal year for a project we're starting in this fiscal year.
And this doesn't reflect the cash carryover either, right? Or does it?
It does.
Okay.
The difference between our actual expenses and actually what we budgeted, there's always been this variation. Is it right to assume that variation that we've always had in the past is going to shrink? That we're closer to reality?
My expectation is that our revenues will hopefully grow and that the department heads will continue to be prudent in their expenditures and will come out at the end of the year with a surplus, which we've done not every year, as Brian pointed out, but pretty consistently, and we build our reserves. I have reason to think that will happen next year, but I can't guarantee that.
Right.
And so the question is, do we want to proceed along those lines? And if we end up using reserves, say, well, that's not working, and change it next year, or do you want to change it right now?
Well, I think the discussion was the last meeting and stuff was we wanted the budget to reflect a more realistic number.
Well,
I mean, isn't that,
That's what got mentioned here last
Right.
budget meeting. To do that, then we have to trim the budgets, and
So when going through these numbers, Sue, do you think these are a more accurate picture of what they will end up next year, or do you,
On the revenue?
on the revenue side of things? Well, I'm on both, but the expenditures hasn't changed at all, but I mean, even on the revenue side of things,
On the revenues, I mean, yeah.
it's,
it really comes down to deciding what you don't want to do that we're currently doing. And that's a policy decision. I mean, and I had a meeting with directors, department heads, and said, this is, in order to keep, this is what we need in order to continue to provide the level of service that we're providing. Less than this means something's got to go, and what do you want that to be? If you cut, like we were talking, the legislative and the administrative budget, there's not enough money there to do you any good. The big budgets are police and tourism.
What did you, feedback you get from those two departments?
3 departments. Well,
Huh?
Kenny wasn't there, but I talked to Kenny. Just tell that basically, what is it you would like for us to not do? I mean, you want to have reduce expenses at the tourism department, or do you want to, what do you want to reduce the number of police officers? What?
to get to that number, so it's even this year.
Now, Eric has brought up the idea of taking capital reserves, which we built, paying off the leases, and that would save $150,000 in cash flow next year. This time next year, you'll be talking about how to replace vehicles again, but
so what all leases are we talking about?
just the police vehicle leases.
That's that figure that Brian was just talking about it.
And you said we could save $150,000?
I
think it's 94,000
Nine.
was budgeted this year.
Okay, 94,000.
That's the lease we pay for the police vehicles. 2 of them, right? Or, how many, Eric?
If we, you want me to approach or?
Yes, please.
Please approach.
State your name.
Eric, 165 South 4th Street.
Position?
If we have, I think, 4 active leases right now on the patrol cars. So we have leased for the last 10 years, 11 years, we'll lease 2 cars a year. So there was a couple of years that we did not, but at some point in time that would plateau. The number of leases, as one dropped off, one would be coming back on. But that would still be carrying a $100,000 annual line item if we continued that program. If we used some of our cash carryover, whatever, the sale of the FIBA building, whatever, what we currently have out would be $206,000, would pay off all of those leases, and then it would free up that line item. That line item does include the anticipation of entering into another lease for 2020 to purchase two patrol cars to continue our replacement program. With that being said, we would have to add $70,000, so it would be $277,000 to pay off that lease and purchase 2 patrol vehicles. But that would be out of that capital, or out of the cash from the sale of the PIVA, or I don't think that we could, I don't think that it's a capital improvement as far as using that fund to purchase the patrol cars.
Well, the fund that we call capital improvements really isn't restricted.
Oh, okay.
It used to be called the levy fund, and when the vote was changed to make it the capital fund, it didn't place any restrictions on it, and the legal opinion has been you can do whatever you want to with it. We as a board, you as a board have said, well, we're not going to use it for operations, so It's a matter of policy, it's stated capital fund.
But we're not really saving anything, we're just prolonging the inevitable. We're pushing it off another year and stuff, and we're gonna have to, yeah, I'm looking for savings, not pushing off expenses for.
Well,
It would save $30,000 a year or so, because by the time
interest.
we get to that plateau, it will be a little over $100,000 a year that we would be budgeting to support those leases.
So
Whereas
where's
if
the
we paid
30,000?
those off, we would ask that you budget $70,000 a year and maintain that to purchase 2 new cars, not lease 2 new cars. So every year that would be 2 new cars. Now, we will see some savings with the sale of the patrol cars as they go out, but it's not, I don't know that it would offset completely.
But that money goes back into the general fund.
Correct, it's still a revenue.
Yeah.
Right.
which theoretically this year we'll have 4. We got the old brown one, we got the silver Crown Vic that the fire department hasn't turned back yet, and then the 2 that we're replacing.
Be coming out of service.
Between those 4, they should pay for one,
It'd be close.
because the 2 Tauruses are still in,
Yeah, it's still around 50,000 miles.
yeah.
Is that what you get for doing that?
But we try to.
We've never kept with the program.
Yeah, we haven't.
To do that, but.
Correct, we've rotated them to
Right.
different departments, or, early on, the ones we were rotating out were old, like the brown car.
So theoretically, this year, we would,
We would be close to paying for one of those cars and could fund, but the upfront expense would have to be purchasing the cars, and then once they're in service, then we would surplus the old cars and sell those and recoup some of that money, but it would go back into the general. And that, again, would be the $94,000, and certainly, we've looked at ways of tightening the belt, and could come up with about $108,000 if you went with that, just another $500 here, $1,000 there, or a couple $1,000 here, that we could tighten, and we've gotten to about $108,000, $109,000 that we could cut.
Dave said, I can cut 10% of my budget, we can cut 10% of the administrative budgets, but again, the dollar figures are.
Well, I don't want to cut any police department budget, I mean,
Want to cut
personnel.
any fire department budget?
No.
Okay. Tell me what you want to do.
Actually, I have a quick question
Yes,
for
sir.
you, Eric, real quick while you're here. So, you may have explained this when you were up here before, that was a long time ago.
That's, yeah.
So, on my math, I had, obviously most of it was salaries, but you had an increase compared to the 2019 adopted at 202,000, or pretty much 203,000. And with the increased Proposition P revenues coming in, it's, I guess, proposed now at 184,000. What was the extra increase for? So basically, the Prop P, we have it 183.5 on the sheet, on the revenue, but then on the police, basically I just took bottom line dollars here compared to there, and that's 202,000, or 203.
Well, some of the, the 184 is 184.
Right.
There will be some increase in other, the loggers, the unemployment insurance, things like that are affected by that salary.
Okay, so that's not going to be covered under the Prop P revenue?
It is. We're taking that off the top of that revenue to pay those, but those line items are going up. But like I said,
20,000 that increase was the computer, the projected computer.
Okay, so
well, but that was already in the budget from last year because that was the copier. 20,000 of it would be the vehicles. We increased that first capital by 20-something thousand.
And that's probably just about all.
Yeah, so that's
Because that'd be about 12,000.
108, yeah.
So, okay. All right, thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
So what is our outlook for the future if we decide to pass this budget? I guess we're just gonna hope and pray that it balances, and any negatives that we come up with, we're just gonna cut out of the emergency fund and then continue that next year as well?
Well, I think next year if you do that, you just do what you just said. If we have to do that, then next year you look, then you get serious about, well, what are we gonna do to correct it? We're trying to correct it now, and we don't know if we need to. That's the whole thing. The way I understand this. That's how we've done it in the past, in the last couple of years that I've been here, and it's worked out. Now, I'm not saying it might not work. Anything could happen. You know, this country could go into a recession, and we could be really looking at a lot of things. So, you know, there's just, you know, can't project, or nobody can say, well, we can't. These are just figures that, well, thank goodness it's worked out. You know, so, but it's no guarantee. But it hadn't. It seems to me that it's been all along. It's been growing. So, and I think it will, but you know, I can't say for sure.
Can we cut anything out of tourism?
Instead of cutting out of tourism, I had emailed Sue and asked the question because I knew that at one point in time, proceeds from Jour de Fête came to the city, which was used for tourism. And at one point that was $24,000. And then it went down to 12, and now it's 0. And I got an idea, Martin asked a couple people what it cost the city to support an event like that, and it's several $1,000s in police overtime, street department work. That to me is a pretty big chunk. That's a lot of work that we put into an event like that. And if they're making money, I'm not quite sure why we're not getting any sort of payment, especially if we're using city resources to get ready for the event, clean up the event, promote the event. Anybody have any idea why we stopped getting those payments?
Ever received any payments in the 8 years I've been here?
Have we ever sent them a bill?
No. There have been discussions at this table about the importance of Jour de Fête to the city.
Well, remind us what they are.
Well, we see it on the people getting gas when they come in and out of town, lodging. We see it on our lodging. That place is booked full.
Sales tax that we receive.
As if I'm sitting on a Jour de Fête committee and you tell me that, well, you take care of Jour de Fête.
Yeah.
So you're just, all I'm telling you is watch it.
I mean, they're not only spending at the Fed, they're spending everywhere.
Well, the other reason I thought of this is because I heard 2 vendors while I was walking around for a very short amount of time tell their customers, if you pay me in cash, I'm not charging you the tax. And so we're not getting as much as we should be. And so if we're not...
We don't have any control over that.
That's right.
We don't have any control.
I realize that, but we do have control over how much extra police protection is there to protect those vendors and their items overnight. That's not protecting our citizens, that's protecting somebody's stuff that they're selling. I just feel like this is a big expense.
I don't agree. You're protecting tourists that are coming into the town. You got people coming on the streets. I mean, you have to provide a service for those folks.
Sure,
Not only the vendors.
overnight, we're protecting the stuff that the vendors are leaving out. There's not really any citizen protection overnight.
Well, yes, there is. You're wrong. The Jour de Fête committee has people on the streets I know for sure, on Friday night, because
Right.
John Stuckey's one of them.
Okay.
There's about a half dozen of them that ride around and do all night long. They do their own watch. And then I believe the police, we got our police department, I'm sure they do a drive-through around there. So I'm just...
I mean, public safety is public safety. It doesn't mean local public safety. It's everybody.
Sure, but if an organization is going to put on an event of this magnitude and make money at it, and it's in turn costing the city, I just think we ought to look at that.
Well, you got to understand, Jour de Fête too is every one of the Lions Club, all your Elks, the Knights. This is a big event for all of them. That's a big fundraiser that they all do, and they're supposed to, on the honor system, pay the Jour de Fête committee, well, a certain percentage of their profits. But there's no way to track that, and so as you know, I don't.
Well,
I'm not privy to the Jour de Fête committees, their treasury or anything else, nor the Lions or anybody else.
Well, it used to be something we received $24,000 a year for.
Okay, well,
And if that's something...
How many years ago was that?
That was In the 80s and 90s.
Well, then that event was also, I understand that event had 400 to 500 vendors back then.
Right.
It's a lot different than what it is now.
Excuse me, it was the mid-90s until 2006 and 2007 when they then paid the city $12,000, and that was the last payment.
David, do you have something to add to this?
I just want to add, that was the years where I was on the Jury Vet Committee, and it was much larger, and the city did give 24, and then after it started to shrink, we shrunk that to 12,000. This is when I was on the committee, I'm no longer. And then there came a year where the Moses Olson property and home was purchased, and some other things were done, and the Jury Vet Committee's reserves decreased. And at that point, it was a voluntary payment. It just was not made anymore. So
And that's another thing too, that property that they have down here, Moses Austin, we all benefit from that. Anybody that comes here benefits from the property that they have to maintain and take care of, you know, so. And like I say, it's just you gotta watch that, otherwise Jordan Fett, and I asked the question, well, what would it mean to this town if there was no Jordan Fett?
Well,
I think it's more than just the revenue. Jordan Fett is a historic event for this town, and there's a lot of things, there's families that revolve around that, and for tourism,
David?
it's huge. It brings people to town for maybe their first look, and they come back, so we gotta be very mindful.
I've had friends from Memphis and below come up for Journey Fest.
Yeah.
I just feel it's a slippery slope.
So do I.
Because if we,
I'm not willing to go down.
are we gonna charge whoever's in charge of the art, or not the art walk, but the chalk festival, for the street department to come close the street off for that? Are we gonna charge extra for football games when there's extra police there?
Good point.
They're all special events, and it all takes city resources to block off streets or whatever.
Well, then maybe we can sit down with department heads that aren't spending more money on events like that and figure out if it's really necessary.
For them to-
Especially if the Jury Vet Committee is providing security as well. Maybe we don't need to provide as much as we did when the event was so much larger.
It would be interesting to analyze how much we spent on extra, like overtime for police or whatever.
Well, I know.
But you
Eric, how much
if
you
we could-
spend on overtime for police on that weekend?
We typically, everybody works some overtime on the weekend. This year, we cut it back considerably where we had 2 officers plus myself and Jason at the event, during the event. We actually cut our Saturday night overnight car this year. But even at that, at one time, we dedicated one person to the Saturday night. And even at our current rates, once we get the Prop P raise, it would have been $360 or something that we paid that one officer. Yeah, Sunday was the administrative officer who gets a salary and doesn't get overtime, and a reserve officer that didn't cost us anything. So we certainly tried this year to reduce
And normally we get help from the county too, right?
county
The
provides.
county was there too. I
Yes.
saw county was
Yes.
there.
I just don't want to go down that slope, but
Right.
I'm just one vote, but
You know, the Jury Vet Committee does pay for all of the Johnny-on-the-spots.
Well, yeah, they're
They pay for all the
expensive.
big trash dumpsters.
Yeah.
And I heard one time they pay a big insurance premium.
Yes.
They
They
pay $15,000, I think it's like for that weekend, if I'm not mistaken, it's almost $15,000 just for insurance for that
Right.
weekend.
I'm
Maybe
sure
I know it's $15,000 just for the Johnny on the spots, the trash, that's what I've heard. You know.
But I
You
think
can find
that's
out, all
simple.
you have to do is talk to Joan Knoll, she was their treasurer. So.
Yeah, just a simple conversation with them and ask, could you help with some of the overtime or something?
And then you got a bunch of people that are volunteers that work their butts off to make that event happen, and there's not a whole lot of gratitude for any of them. Just like any other volunteers that make this city what it is and how it works. You know, and not everybody, nobody wants to help because, well, it's the greatest weekend, I can't, you know, and so I'm not gonna go make them mad.
I'm
I
just,
don't have the time to run Jordan Fett.
I brought it up because it's something that used to be what I think is a significant amount. If we're gonna start talking about cutting,
Well-
why don't we analyze and look at the things that we used to get for services we provided that we no longer
Let's
get?
go back, tourism used to cost zero. Now it's $247,000 if you want to go that route.
Yeah, but I don't, if you want to cost.
I'm just saying.
I agree with you, but
You know,
if you want to go back that far, look at what your budgets were and how everything has grown, and to talk to cut something, and I'm against it. I'm against it.
I know you're
because
against it.
It benefits the city, and not only the city, but the whole community. So, I mean, the whole county, and it's proven itself with jobs, but that's your choice. So,
There's a certain amount of goodwill the city should provide. So maybe that's one of them, but when I ask about a more realistic budget that we had talked about the last meeting, you immediately come up with cuts.
that's the only way to balance it, is to cut, to get to that number. This is projected, the way I understand, we projected all this, and then every year we don't spend it, because of what Martin says, everybody, they overdo it, and then they're frugal, and they come in, and it works out. So if you want to look at hard figures, the only way to do that is to say, well, here, I'm going to spend this on this,
Yeah, but I use the term realistic numbers that we use, and the numbers that we budget higher, and we come in under that. So why can't we have those numbers where we come into what we actually spend? A realistic budget. I mean, why do we have to have that big variation of how many hundred
Because that
thousand?
budget assumes the worst. I mean, it assumes $3 gasoline instead of $2.50 a gallon gasoline.
But what is it hurting?
well, Brian, you got the figures there. Give us some of the figures.
I mean, I kind of went over them last time. I mean, the biggest differences that I'm seeing is in our guess when it comes to revenue. So, like 2014, our proposed budget was under 81,000. 2015, our proposed was and when I mean under, I mean our proposed was less than our actual. So it was less than our actual in 2014, 81,000. It was less than our actual, 192,000 in 2015. 2016 was pretty close. It was at 25,000. See, 2017, it was an $82,000 difference. 2018 was 130,000, and then I think you had said in that email that it was like $175,000 off on this one. So I mean, if you average that out, I mean we're usually off over about $100,000 on our revenue, and then there are definitely some years that our expenditures are pretty close. Actually, like 2018, it was only, you guys were almost spot on with the expenditures because it was like 3,500. But I think you said like this coming up year, we're coming up like $200,000 less in expenditures, I thought you said in the email, in our actual. And then there's been, in the past, 2014 was $131,000 difference, and then 2016 was a $55,000 difference. So it's some of them are close for sure, but some of them are vastly, they differ greatly. So when I was doing this, I was just trying to come up with closer revenue and expenditure, numbers, and maybe that's what you guys do. I know is incredibly difficult, so I'm assuming it's a lot harder than what I'm saying. I'm sure it comes off the tongue a lot easier than it actually is to do, but it just, with me, I don't sit real well being agreeing to a budget that's $200,000 in the red.
Realistic numbers, I mean, I've done budgets for years and stuff. Realistic numbers gives you a definitive guideline to work through that year and stuff. And if you do anything to those numbers other than realistic numbers, then there's this cushion in there. And I can tell you, if you pass history, there's times money gets spent for whatever reason just to hit their budget numbers.
Well, if
I'm
it's
not
significant, it's got to be approved by this board, so. I mean,
And I have argued, yes, that in public budgeting,
happens.
That phenomenon is infamous. It
Right.
does happen.
Not here.
It has not happened.
And I got stopped short of saying I'm not accusing anybody, but it gives you a more realistic number to look at month to month to month as the year goes on. Anything any above than that, then you have to guess, well, this is where I'm saying I was going to be, this is where I am, so I just think a realistic budget is good business.
Where were and you said that the expenditures were gonna be coming in about $200,000 less. Where were the main differences in that in the email you sent? I believe that's what, unless I misread that.
195.
175, wasn't it?
This year, we will be about 175 below the budgeted expenditures.
No, sorry. Do you know, basically I was just asking, do you know where the main differences are at, where that came in so low?
I'd have to go back and look at it again.
Yeah.
Sue and I went over it. And I mean, it's like Gary's chemical budget, is a lot lower than we projected. Fuel is lower than we projected because gasoline prices didn't go up as we had budgeted for. That's the kind of thing that happens. If gasoline had gone to $3 a gallon, I wouldn't have been able to say that to you. If salt prices had gone up to $120 a ton, I wouldn't have been able to say that to you. But those things didn't happen. We shopped, we got the best deals we could, and you add all those up, and that's what it ends up being.
I think we will continue to do that stuff.
But you want me to predict those things?
Yeah, how do you predict
We
that?
budget the other way around. We
Yeah,
budget
it makes
assuming
it-
those things aren't going to happen.
All you do is add a ton of work to your people. And I just, and
We could do
there
that.
again,
Because
why do you want to fix something
Reduce
that's not
everything 20%
not broken?
and then
When it does break,
hope for the best.
Yeah, but we're not talking about 20%. We're talking about 8 or 9.
Okay. But it's-
That's my opinion.
okay. So I guess what we need to do is decide if that's the route you want to go, if we can have a vote on that, what do you want to do here? Because we need to move forward here. So, I mean, do you want to,
Well,
that's the only question I got, because we could talk about this for another 2 or 3 weeks.
I mean, we can, yeah, I mean, this obviously
Brian, you
didn't.
brought the subject up, so
This didn't
you
really
decide
go
what we're
anywhere. I
gonna
mean,
do
we
here.
can go whatever route anybody wants, but I can tell you where it stands, I'm a hard no. I think I probably have some support behind that as well.
Okay, so,
I just don't feel comfortable with the budget as it sits. I can go through and change all kinds of stuff if I thought that'd be necessary. I mean, I can always do that. Sitting here in front of me, I don't have the resources available to tell, hey, this is where we should cut. But, because I was hoping that our revenues, after getting more realistic numbers, would be higher. The last 2 years, we're going to be over 2 million in revenue. Well, I guess 2018 was essentially 2 million. But I was hoping it would get the number a little bit closer, and that's what I wanted to see first, and it's not even close. So we're still sitting at negative 200,000, and that concerns me.
I can only push Sue so far.
Right, yes.
I'm a no
Sue, I'm gonna need you to find $200,000 somewhere, please.
on the budget.
So what are we gonna do?
yeah, what do you want to see here? We
I
want
want everybody else to vote.
okay, well,
We're on the table.
so yes is leave it like it is.
Leave it like it is, put it on the agenda for the next meeting, and ask you to approve it.
And if you don't,
Don't approve it.
then you want to come in and have the,
But we got to get something done by the 30th of September.
so.
But we still haven't talked about employee raises.
We have
Is
not.
that something we wanna talk about?
I think you have to. It's a part of the
And-
budget.
Well, it's-
And when we, and we
That's part of the budget.
And when we first started, we were talking about insurance and the options for that. What is the logger contribution that the city makes?
The retirement program.
No, what is the amount, the percentage, please? The city,
Yeah, just-
4%, okay. I never saw it specified anywhere, thank you. I mean, I think those things are worth us at least discussing, and I don't think we can do that in 3 minutes.
No. Well, I guess we'll have another work session
Yes.
I think we have
next
to.
week, or 2 weeks from now.
Well, you wanna wait
And
2
if
weeks?
you
We'll
have
wait 2 weeks.
ideas of
We had to have it-
specifics,
I'll go-
can you let us
next- I
know?
will. yeah.
I'm for doing it
Email us.
I was
earlier.
hoping I wouldn't
Yeah.
have to, but I will.
Ideas for what?
What specifically we can do with this budget to get it to where Jimmy and Brian are thinking it needs to be.
Jimmy, you want to come in and look at all the figures and all the, because to do that, somebody's going to have to come into City Hall, I take it, and look at the police budget.
I got it all on my computer. I can go through, I mean,
And then
we
you're
could.
going to have to spend some time with Eric to make sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's gonna
I
be
mean,
the
that's the
biggest
whole-
problem, that's
how
the
you gonna
biggest
do that?
problem is, you know, I'm not in these departments. It's kinda hard for me to be able to come through and pick and choose, especially in something as important as the police and the fire, to go through and
Well,
expect.
and tourism, you need to spend time with
It's-
Sandra too, because,
Well,
so
that's-
if you're willing to do that,
I'm-
and we got time, it's gonna have to, we can't just do that every other week.
I
So-
agree. I
So
agree
it's
with
gonna
that.
have to be, and then what you're getting into is you're being managers.
No, you know,
We're
you-
managing
we're
the
being
people's
stewards.
So
money.
you're being
Steward-
managed-
stewards
you're-
of the-
I understand that, the money,
Right.
but you have, what you're becoming more managers of the department.
half of the tourism budget is personnel and personnel-related expenditures. And that's to keep the welcome center open.
I just want to add some color to that though, because when we're talking about at least a $175,000 swing, we sit around this table and talk about what projects we can do and what we can't do. That's not a small number, and that funds something.
$175,000 swing that we don't know if it's gonna be, it's gonna be, it could be, it could
Right,
not be.
and we can't break that down unless we go into that number in line by line and see where that variance is. We won't, we can't have an effective conversation about that.
I get that.
Right.
I'm just saying, it's a lot of work, folks.
I know,
And you
but-
know what? If you're willing to do it, get with it.
What happened at this table exactly a year ago was some of these same board members sat at this table and said, we wanted a more in-depth review of the budget, we wanted more involvement, a whole list of things and stuff, and here we are.
But I
being
didn't see
asked-
that who all come down to City Hall to do the work, to do it. I didn't. Did you come and spend the time at City Hall to do it? Did Joe? Did anybody else? Mike, you get a pardon.
Well,
Brian, you get a pardon because you weren't here to be able to do that, but
But we
I don't know about
changed.
y'all, Bob, I can't do it.
No, I-
I'm sorry, I'd love to do it, but I work a full-time job just like you
Right.
and everybody else. So I do depend on the man that's sitting right here and the heads of these departments to do a good job, to be frugal. And in the past, they've done a great job, so. and-
I'm not questioning anybody's ability.
Well, you are.
In
when
any
you-
No, I'm not.
I
I'm
guess
not
we are.
questioning anybody's ability or the job anybody does. All I'm saying is, we sat here a year ago and we asked to be able to do that, but instead, we got 45-minute work sessions. We had longer sessions than that on the previous budgets. We did them during the meeting, and we brought the 3 department heads in every time and had whatever time we wanted to, and it just seems like now
We're back right where we,
no, we took a step backwards, to me.
Well,
I want to do my job, and I think most of the other people here want to do their job and stuff. That's all it is. I mean, I think we have good department heads. I think we're doing a good job operating efficiently. But we're asked by the people that elect us to do a good job in representing them, and that's all I'm asking for.
well, and I agree with you 100%, but I've had nobody accuse me personally of not doing my job.
No,
I don't know if any of y'all have, but I haven't got a lot of phone calls on the negative end of this. And I know budgets are tough and we want to be frugal, but you have this amount of money, you have this amount of spends, and you go. And if you want to make more money, then you cut budgets.
we just want to be a step ahead of the game rather than a step behind.
But we're not a step behind yet. Unless you show me in a half a year from now, when we're in a deficit and we end up next year a step behind, then I think you talk about it. But to go ahead on the premise that when we might, and then the cut, and then you could make it a whole lot worse than really what it could be.
I've
But
never used the word cut, I just said a realistic budget.
I disagree, I think it is a realistic budget. So, but that's okay, I just disagree, so. With that,
Well, before we move forward or vote, can I just understand something? If we're gonna move forward with meeting again, we're gonna meet next week, right?
Yeah.
That's
So
fine.
if we're gonna say we're gonna meet again and not just go ahead with this budget, can we at least firm up a date right now when we're gonna come in?
Thursday night, 6 o'clock.
I'm good. Are you good?
I'm good anytime.
So before we say we're gonna examine this budget more in depth, which is fine, I just wanna make sure we're gonna start doing it on a weekly basis and possibly a bi-weekly basis if need be.
Well, the decision that has to be made, and again, it's just, what do you want to do away with, or what do you want to do less of? Because numbers, you know, are pretty conservative, but you want to reduce the hours of the Welcome Center, which will reduce personnel costs. You want to not fund the $20,000 equipment replacement that we were going to put in the fire equipment budget. What do you not want to do? Because, again, we can fiddle with the cost of fuel or the cost of chemicals, but it's not going to get you there.
I won't be here next Thursday, so I've got something else planned, so. But you can have the meeting, that's no big deal. So
I'll
we
be
need
here.
to-
I'll be here.
Okay, so we will have another next Thursday at 6 o'clock with a work session, okay? All right.
There's a
Hey,
rental
wait a minute,
committee.
6
There's a rental housing authority meeting, at what time?
Is it on the calendar there?
I thought it was at 5. It's at 5. Were you good? You be good in an hour?
I'll do my best.
Okay, very good, so that'll work. Well, we're done with that, now we need to move into our meeting.
Yeah.
All right,
I think everything's done.
let's have stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pass it down there.
So roll call, please.
Mayor Hostler.
Here.
Alderman Smith.
Here.
Alderwoman Johnson. Here. Alderman Donovan.
Here.
Alderman Jokers.
Here.
Alderman Rainey.
Here.
Alderman Jones.
Here.
Alderman Pitts.
Here.
Alderman Wolfen.
Here.
Mayor, we have a quorum.
Very good. Move for approval of the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All righty. Takes us down to Martin's report.
Okay, it was reported well in the paper that there was a meeting that was sponsored by the National Park Service where they came in with the deputy director, I guess, the interim deputy director. They have a lot of interims. Acting, excuse me. Several of the board members attended. They were just kind of giving us an update on where they stand. The guy that's been appointed that's from the Arch superintendent was introduced, and he's been back several times since then, so he's just jumping in. Some of you may be aware that Joker started on Chevrolet Lane with the tree trimming. We had some signage issues, and so Gary jumped in and helped him get the trimmer get signs up that would keep people from going halfway up the street and having to turn around and come back. We received bids on the overlay work that you wanted to pursue. There was a typo on the Ballman Contracting Company. That was supposed to be $74.80 a ton. Our contract is per ton. The estimates are the estimates that the contractors gave based on their perception of the work. We had originally looked at this and had $67 a ton, and it came in higher because of the work environment. We can't shut down 4th Street while they're doing their paving work, so they're going to have to do 2 lanes, 1 lane, and keep the other one open. The difference isn't in the cost of the materials; it's in the labor that is involved in working in that environment. So that Joker's contract was the apparent low bidder, or is the low bidder, and he has the contract on the agenda tonight. We received 2 requests out of 12 invitations for RFQs on the auditing services, and I'm going to let the committee address that when it comes time on the agenda for committee reports. There's been some discussion about social media policy, and you have at your tables an excerpt from the personnel manual that relates to social media. The question is, not that anybody here is abusing the access to social media, but what is the appropriate thing for posting on the city's social media pages? And that's kind of the question that's on the table for discussion during my report. If this board says only put these things on, then I'm good with whatever you want to do. We have posted recently some things that didn't relate to city business, but seemed newsworthy to the person who posted them, and I don't disagree with their decision. But we're looking for guidance.
Well, I've had at least one conversation with Martin about this, because I think we can be using our social media more effectively. I kind of did a quick review of some of the things that a couple of our sites have posted, and I don't know that they're relevant. A few things are incorrect, and I've pointed out that they're incorrect, and they're still on our social media, so I see that as a pretty big problem. I don't know if we should consider having some sort of, somebody, how do I articulate this? If there is something that the person in charge of an account is not sure if it's completely accurate, or Martin, what we discussed was that somebody could call up Megan and say, would you please post this? And if Megan thinks it's appropriate, she posts it. Is that still accurate?
Not exactly, no.
Okay.
But
it has happened.
Well, in the event that you're talking about, somebody did ask the city clerk to post it, and she thought it was appropriate.
Okay.
What was that?
The sandbagging at Loida.
Oh, okay.
Right. I think that there's.
And the question, I guess, is do we want to limit it to city business? Or do we want it to be kind of a more general community information source?
I don't see the point in having a specific police department Facebook page if we're not going to address public safety. And that, for example, that page has not done much to address public safety. There were a lot of Proposition P posts right around the time of the election. And since that, there's been what I like to call a thoughts and prayers post. There was a link to the city code that was posted once, and there was a come say hi while we're at Jerdafet. I think there are a lot of things that are more relevant to public safety in our community that we could be posting. And I think that if we're going to have some of the more, public interest or other community information, we also need to have things that are relevant to our community, like information on paying tickets. That is one thing that's about to change. I don't think we've once posted on any of our platforms any information about, hey, after October 1st, here's what happens. Things are going to be a little different with our court and our tickets. I didn't see a single street closure for Jerdafet posted anywhere. And, I thought if we're going to post, have fun at Jerdafet, come say hi, maybe we ought to post a reminder about our open container law. That's one of my big concerns. I feel like if we're going to use our social media effectively, we need to post things that are relevant and accurate, and reply to comments. We don't seem to have very good follow-up. There's been a couple of things that people have commented on, questions about, like when we were flushing the water system, people were asking, is the water okay to drink? And nobody ever responded to that. And I think we've got to be really careful with what we post, because certain posts are getting a lot of shares, and if that information is not accurate, it's getting around pretty quickly. And if we discover that information is inaccurate, I think we need to take the post down.
So why is this attached to your report?
Well, that was just an example that this week, Susie, I just wanted for an example, it's something she was talking about, and asked me if I'd bring it up at the meeting, and we could talk about it. I like what you said,
Yeah,
adding to it, I don't have no problem with that.
I don't disagree with anything you said, but I also don't have a problem with this neither.
Well, I don't want to get
as-
into
as far
censoring,
as-
but I understand that point too, and then the procedure for me was, I talked to the sheriff, to the chief about it, we talked about it, and I left that in his hands. I trust his decision on that and supported it either way, so. I didn't find it, I don't think it's offensive, it could be a little bit controversial.
I don't think offensive is the bar we want to set for our social media.
Well, I don't think you do.
I never use the term offensive, I don't find it
No.
offensive.
Okay, well,
But I think we need to be timely and relevant, and if we're gonna have commenting enabled, we need to respond to people's questions. And I don't know if that's a matter of figuring out which city staff is in charge of that, coming up with maybe more defined.
well, maybe we could do that
Definitions.
too with Lisa coming on board.
Well, I think if you establish a set of well-defined guidelines, then the people who are doing it will follow them.
So can you do that research and come up with some proposed guidelines that are maybe a little more specific than this?
If you're, I just need to be clear on the goal, and as I understand it, you want to minimize general interest postings and improve.
I don't think so. I
increase-
don't think so.
well,
No, I mean, the
then I'm
fire,
misreading it.
I think the fire department, they do a lot of safety tips, and those are very relevant. Just because it's not something that is specific, that is content they created, it's still very relevant.
See, well, I didn't see the Lloyda post, but if I had seen it before it went on, I would have thought it was appropriate.
Me too.
Because, we have.
Right, but it didn't address why people are needed to sandbag. So people were saying, oh my gosh, the town's gonna flood, they need sandbaggers.
Well,
I think,
in that statement is they needed sandbags to keep water from coming in somewhere. So I understand that, but all that is a simple phone call to City Hall or to an alderman to
but why
say.
can't we just include that? I mean, we've got a post, we should tell people
All
all the
I'm saying
information.
is, I saw that, I would not have thought
I wouldn't have thought that was
that this is going to be misinterpreted by someone.
Yeah, so, I mean, and that,
If you get 10 phone calls, then,
I just wouldn't have thought.
You know.
I'm not, if we're going to
Okay.
allow those kinds of posts, and you're going to rely
well, that's
on
public
me
information. I would
to
think that would be a
determine
good post.
whether
yes,
it's
but I'm saying it
complete
was not very
information. You're gonna-
specific. It didn't have, it said Lloyda Ag. I bet you half the people in this town don't know where Lloyda Ag is. And it wasn't saying why sandbaggers were needed, so people were jumping to conclusions. I just feel like we've got a lot of information we're posting, Valley Spring bathrooms will be closed until further notice. They're open right now, aren't they?
And he posted that they were booked.
The city website, the city Facebook page was not updated. It still says
And
they're
I-
closed till further notice. So I think we
Okay.
just need to have some sort of follow-up. The golf cart and UTVs need to be registered in January. I brought my golf cart down once I saw that post, and it didn't need to be registered in January. I don't think we even figured that out. It was a big question on, are golf carts January or are they 1 year?
For 2 years now.
What?
For 2 years. We voted.
For the golf cart?
Well, UTV, I don't know, golf.
The golf
I thought a
cart is
UTV and a
diff-
golf cart were the
No,
same
it's a
thing.
different ordinance, and so if we're posting information, I just feel like we need to have accurate information if we're gonna be spreading
Well,
it.
nobody can disagree with that.
Who's in charge of it?
Who's the gatekeeper of
Yeah,
our social
right.
media?
Give you a gatekeeper and be done with it.
Well, I mean, the department heads
Jesus.
manage their own.
So the department heads are
Websites.
responsible for updating their
And-
social media.
Megan's been managing the City Hall website, and.
Is that what I'm hearing?
and
So
I-
you just got in saying the gatekeepers are,
Department heads,
then they should be updating, they need to check their social media and update it. Please do so.
but.
More often.
Often, I mean, almost on a daily basis, you should be looking at your own social media.
I don't know how you can set up regulations, that list would go on forever, but
I wouldn't be posting anything.
me neither.
Well, we've got
I'm
something
serious.
that's
I
already
think
in
one
effect
department head
that's
said
right
that.
here.
Look, I don't care.
This is- I think
Something to do with this
well.
because I want to do it.
Yes, but who does everybody know about this? Martin, I asked you about this, you told me it didn't exist. And here it is.
Well, you're right, I did say.
Right,
'cause
so
I wrote-
if you don't know it
I
exists,
wrote this.
if you don't know this exists, then how do we expect Megan or
Because
anybody else?
everyone gets the personnel manual.
Well, yeah, but
It acknowledges its contents.
do they refer to it on a daily basis?
No. And again, I didn't remember when I spoke to you that I had written this. So when I went back and looked at, oh, sure, there it is.
Well, like it or not, this is how people get their info, right here.
Yes, especially the younger generation.
Yep.
They're not gonna call you, they're not gonna stop by.
Even us young 50-year-olds hit social media.
That's what I was including.
Right.
That's where we're drawing the line, though, 50.
I definitely don't think it hurts to ask who, the gatekeepers, as we're calling them here, to just try to check more often, post more, more often.
Or delegate to someone who will.
Or delegate. I mean, I don't think that hurts
I
anybody.
mean, they're doing it on the clock, right? I mean, nobody's expected to
Well,
do
this
this
should
when
be a
they're,
paid activity, yes, I think.
when they're
Don't
off.
you all think that
so-
should be?
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
just, yeah, if somebody comments at 10:30 at night, nobody's expecting a
Right.
city employee to respond to that, I would think.
It's a good point.
Treat it as a voicemail you would
Right.
return. Yeah, I agree with that.
So are we not taking any action? Are we just saying, can we
I like-
distribute this to the folks?
Personally, after reading this, this is the first time I've seen this, I think this reads well. I don't think we need to add or subtract anything personally.
Well, let's give it to the people that are using it then.
Copy that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
there you go.
A reminder.
Okay. Thank you.
Bless your heart.
Carry on.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
So the contract on the 2.1 acres is before you. We did the contracts and signatures. We had a meeting, was it yesterday? Whatever, about with the people who are involved in the municipal court transfer. I left that meeting with the sense that everybody was on the same page. Two other members of the board were there. I don't know.
Yes, but I do feel that this board needs to still have some say in a couple of things. Was Jeremy able to make it tonight?
No, he's not here. I didn't ask him to come.
I requested that at the last two meetings.
Well, I
and
understand, but
really
I looked
feel-
at this, and most of all this was answered Tuesday. 90% of it.
But the things that we're not are things that this board needs to be aware of. And so I'm gonna once again ask for a meeting with Jeremy in attendance so that we can discuss things like when he's gonna be available to people. Personally, I do not want a 17-year-old kid who gets pulled over and can't find his insurance card. I don't think he should have to take a Wednesday morning off of school to show up to court, wait for his name to be called, just to say, yes, I've had my insurance all along.
He doesn't have to, he can file that at any time during normal business hours. It's automatically dismissed by the court if you have proof of insurance.
It's
at the time.
dismissed by Jeremy, but
No, it's dismissed by
the,
the court. If it's a no insurance ticket, they can come any time during business hours and present the insurance.
that has, I'm sorry, but that would be a dismissal through Jeremy.
It is not. It can be too, but it'd be dismissed by the court. On a proof of insurance ticket,
Okay,
all they have to do is show proof of insurance and that driver, that vehicle, and that date, and the court's required to dismiss it without any court costs. Now, in a certain court, they may not do that. Municipal courts, they always do.
then that's probably something that needs to be discussed, because that is not something the circuit court does.
That's up to the circuit court.
Okay. But some of those questions, I haven't gotten any answers to, and I think that this board needs to be aware that
Well,
there are some pretty big changes.
Joe, do y'all feel that way, or just you,
I think a
Susie?
lot of the issues they're just unknown yet. Nobody has an answer to them, because this is something new that's taking place. You know, if we want Jeremy to come over, well, that's more money we're gonna have to pay out. He's not gonna come over for free. You know, how much do we wanna throw at this? The state
I didn't think we
determines-
paid him by the hour. I thought he had a set fee. We pay administrative costs for clerical work.
For his regular services, this would be above and beyond, and I think there's a clause in there for that.
Anybody know? Because I would think that requesting him to come to a meeting to discuss some of these details.
I don't remember a provision like that.
I thought there was.
In our agreement.
I think it's worth it. I think it's gonna determine a lot of things. Some of those questions I had have not been determined yet.
But there's a
Is
lot of
this
things that
something
we
we're gonna
can't
vote
determine.
on?
Well, I mean,
it's,
I don't know.
knowing if he's gonna treat every ticket as an individual case, or if he's gonna lump tickets together, that's gonna matter if the county decides to start charging us, if they charge us by the case or if they charge us by the ticket, that makes a
That's up to the
difference.
county, though. I mean, the county's, we can't, you heard the judge, he's imposing the fines, it's his court, and there's gonna be no questions. So there's a lot of these things that it's gonna come through him.
And
I
that's-
understand,
But he
Jerry.
also said-
Determined by the state, not the county.
He also said at that meeting that if he makes a deal with somebody, that's completely up to Jeremy. And
Okay.
as a board, we should have some say in that. That is part of our direction.
No, you're not gonna be directing a prosecutor how to prosecute cases.
Never.
I'm sorry, that, I
Even
did,
the mayor.
I mean, that's not,
I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
I was not being very articulate. I feel like I would like to know what direction he's going to take on some of these items. I sent these 2 weeks ago as requested. I haven't gotten any answers from anyone yet.
So I just have a quick question. Could we either, one of two things are popping in my mind. Could we either invite him or could we email him during regular business hours a list of questions to answer and provide answers to those concerns?
I don't,
Does he have, I mean, I'm just saying, if we know what we, can we broach the topic via email or do we need to have him here if he's gonna charge us more? I'm just trying to get my mind around this.
or can we have Martin talk to him?
Okay.
I don't know why we have to have
Look,
the whole board.
I'm in
well,
total
why don't,
support.
and I'll be glad to do whatever you direct me to do, but, you know, the police chief reports to me, the fire chief reports to me, the tourism director reports to me.
The prosecutor
attorney does not report to me.
Right.
But I think one of the bigger issues with this is this board made a decision in March to transfer the court. After that vote was made, the very next meeting was after the election, so I sat here and I have not missed a meeting. We have not talked about this.
What is there, I mean, we've been to, you and I have talked about it. You sat
yes.
across from Jeremy one night and talked to him.
Yes.
We've been in the court and talked about it.
But this body has not talked about it, and
Well,
if
what-
this body was aware of how things are being handled, I think it makes a difference, because I don't want to see us make a decision with very little follow-up and things go as badly as
Well,
they did
the
with this.
decision's already been made by this board
Right,
to
but
hire Jeremy.
but we have had no follow-up. We decided we're going to transfer the court, but there's
Right.
still a lot of things to work out that this board has not at all been involved in.
I understand that, but this board has no, this board's, the only decision this board needs to make and can make is who of our prosecutor is. We can't, the court is the decisions, you work in the court. You know, a lot of this stuff, what are the fine changes and how will this impact the budget? Well, the courts, they decided.
Right,
Tim,
but have we gotten those? I've never seen them.
well, we'll have to ask Mr. Inman about that.
And we got them.
We got them.
Okay, so
And they're
have
part
we
of, they're part
worked
of what's
that in?
reviewed, which
And then the next question
projected
is,
revenues.
and we talked about this, what would be the city's approach to unpaid fines? That's a good question, because I've been in this court for several times, and it's come back every month. Well, that ain't gonna happen. I like what they're gonna do over there. After 6 months, turn it over to a collector
Right.
and see what happens. I think we'll have a better chance of that.
But we've never decided what we're gonna do with all of those. I mean, Jeremy originally said, no, everything's getting transferred, and then on Tuesday, we decided, well, no, we're gonna keep these disposed of cases and deal with the fines, but we don't know what we're gonna do with that. We don't even know how much money that is.
Well, I'm gonna find that out, and if it's not a lot of money, I suppose I've got the power to just dismiss them all, according to our charter and according to the code.
Yes.
And I'm not gonna try to chase these people around to get pennies on the dollar. I'm not gonna do it. But I'm gonna find out what that is. But maybe we do that. Maybe we set up, maybe there's things Martin and I talked about. We could set up an ordinance to, if this person, they would try to get water, maybe we can try to get it. I don't know what we can do. I don't know
Well,
what.
and that's what,
But those aren't questions, Jeremy don't know what, that's not a question for Jeremy.
well, that was a question that was part of all of the issues with when we were transferring things over. You know, our police department was handing out tickets, and Jeremy was filing them on August 2nd. That wasn't supposed to happen until.
Okay, but Susie,
Yeah,
it seems to me is that, I understand this, but there was a lot of unknowns going into this thing. Really, it's just like, I think really, to be honest with you, you're just too close to the issue, where you work in the court, and it's a good thing.
Maybe.
No, it is.
But it's allowed me to see how a breakdown in communication has led to a whole lot of trouble for a lot of people. And I don't want to see that happen again. We are responsible.
I felt really good about the meeting that we had Tuesday. I felt, that's the best I felt about it, and I felt that from the judge, from Julie Bova. You know, the last conversation I had with her wasn't very pleasant, but this conversation went well. I thought Jeremy answered the questions. There's a few things that Judge Inman wanted him to do that he's got to do, and then the rest of it is going to be, you know, I don't know how the fees, their fees are going to affect our budget. I don't know how they are. I know it's going to be a change, but I don't.
And it's kind of unknowable, just because you don't know how many cases are going to be filed under what code number, and I mean, I don't know. I guess we could do a historic kind of review and see how many fell in each category, but.
And then the one with Jeremy available, now that's a good question. Is he going to be available for defendants to discuss amending charges? You know, and with the proof of insurance, well, we talked about that, but to be available to these folks so they don't have to take off work.
Right.
Well, you know what? I'm sorry, but that's part of the punishment. If you break the law, you've got to hold some responsibility.
So,
I mean,
so usually when city court's here, he comes an hour ahead of time and talks to folks.
yeah.
There's gonna be a 9 o'clock docket over there.
Okay, well, maybe he can still do that. I suspect
I don't
he
know,
might.
but that's the kind of things I would like to know answers to. And I
Okay.
sent this email out, and I'm assuming you did not send it to Jeremy?
I did.
I thought that's why I was sending it.
Well, I sent it, I
Well,
went,
and I requested that he be here.
Yeah.
And.
you sent
I've
it to
been
the
asking-
board.
Right.
And like I say, I looked at this, and then knowing that it's gonna take, now there's a few questions, and I can bring Jeremy here, but I'm not gonna bring him here to be persecuted. And I'll tell you right now, Susie, that's exactly what I've felt with this man every time I've been around, and that's wrong. It's absolutely wrong. And the man has done a super job for us, and he's gonna continue to do that. And I know it's gonna be a transition and a change, but I have all the confidence in the world in this man's professionalism and the professionalism of that court that things are gonna get done. Is it gonna affect, if it's a money issue, I get it, but there's certain things we don't know yet, because we don't know we don't know if Judge Inman might dismiss everything. And it's his business, he can do that. He might not, if he sets the fines, and he stated that. And he told me and told us that we're not gonna question him. You're not gonna bring him in here and question him, because it's his court. So, I agree with him, so.
But he also said that he doesn't hold any
Right.
ill will towards the city. I mean,
Right. And they know, and the problem is, and it come out in that meeting, there's more work for the county, the people over there. It's more work.
And the state.
Yeah.
And I don't think that is the issue.
Well, I think that
really
plays a
don't.
lot into it, because I've gotten that, and you know what? It's come out 2 or 3 times in meetings that I had. And like I say,
But I also feel that there is an issue that's gonna be ongoing. It's how we handled it. We voted, and then we just put it away.
it's not been put away. It's been worked through. We've had several meetings. I've had conversations with Julie, Andrea.
We put it away. The board has not had any communication. And I feel like there are
We don't have
still.
any control over it. I don't know what you want the board to do.
There are still relevant items that I think we need to
Well,
discuss.
I'm going to tell you what, you and I are going to sit down first. We're going to go through this list. And then we're going to, because there is some questions that Jeremy can answer. And we can do this on a conference call. You know, unless the rest of the board wants to come in on a meeting. Do you want me to bring him in for a meeting? I'll do that. And I'm sure he won't even charge us, so.
My plate's pretty full right now with the rest of this stuff, but, you know.
It's up to the board.
But there are more issues than just items for Jeremy on there. That the first item really involves pretty much the staff in this building and how.
Well, so what is the
things went.
procedure for tickets issued but not given court dates after October 1st?
didn't we get that resolved at that meeting?
Yeah, we got that resolved at that meeting. That was the first issue. Now,
Yeah.
then it
I
goes
think,
on.
so.
How are we communicating this when citations are issued? We settled that over there. It's on the ticket, I believe. Did we settle that, chief, with that?
All right, we'll sit down and
Yeah, let's do
chat.
that.
I
Let's
think we
do
need
that.
to move on.
Okay, that'd be fine. Thank you.
Okay. So, the county collector has, after we had some conversations, meetings, and emails, has sent a proposed contract that's on the agenda for tonight, which is similar to the contract we had before. The only difference is there's a specific provision in this agreement that she won't be collecting the special tax bills for code enforcement. And we can talk about procedure for that. Mark's reviewed the letter. Mark sent me his response. His opinion is that those should be, if we do work in order to enforce our code and produce a tax bill, the person doesn't pay the tax bill, that it be handled as a civil matter, and that we seek collection as you would any other obligation, civil obligation that a person has to the city. Am I misstating?
Given that the collector is refusing to do it, that is our best option.
And we'll decide, you know, I mean, they turn theirs over to collection agencies. Can we do that?
Yeah, you can if you wish.
No, I might do things. We'll talk about those kinds of things later. The levy district meeting met. They set their tax rate. They kept it the same as it has been, and so there wasn't a whole lot of more news coming out of that one. The chief, Bennett, and Dave Bova, and I met with Councilman Rainey to discuss code enforcement out of our kind of frustration that, you know, we can only take it so far, and then when we kind of get our hands tied. I think we're kind of at the same, that same statement is the conclusion, is that if there's a code enforcement issue, well, that's not exactly right. Someone fails to respond to our request to come into compliance, we cite them. We seek their voluntary compliance, and in the event that they don't comply, we cite them. If it's grass or something we have to cut it ourselves, then we would create that special tax bill and seek to collect it through civil action. Am I missing anything? Okay.
If that's the answer, I'm satisfied with that.
We met with FEMA about flood damage and receiving some payment. They have decided that we can file our damages jointly with the levy district, which creates, you know, ours are relatively minor to the levy district's tens of thousands of dollars. And we can just piggyback on them. There's one set of paper and one set of paper trail, and FEMA will not require us to file separately for our $3,000 worth of claims. And finally, we had a meeting with Donzi Construction in this building. That's another kind of committee report out thing. Maybe Bob would want to report out on that when we get to committee reports, or do you want to do it now?
We can talk about it now.
Okay.
He basically gave us a schedule of values, which basically includes the police department and the entrance vestibule. And he came up with a figure a little over $210,000. And that did include some of the additional pumps in the basement and work around the existing pits that are down there, making them a lot smaller in size and putting a more suitable pump in down there. He also gave us some options, adding surface mount lights in the City Hall area of an additional $5,187. On the plan, there's another door, number 26, was another $3,360. And one of the things on the outside of the building, as they're furring out the walls, was to add a foam board on the inside to kind of remediate some moisture, anything coming through into the insulation that they're going to be adding to the walls. One issue that did come up was the demo labor and trash removal. somewhere along the line, we talked about the street department doing some demo and maybe some of the policemen. If we want to do that, there is no number in there for that. If we don't, and we have Dunsey provide all that, it's an approximate addition of $13,000. But in that $210,000, we have some variables in there based on selections that we make on flooring, cabinets, and some of those things that basically gave us an amount that were allowed in his total figure. And it's just a matter if we decide to proceed with it or not to proceed with it. One of the things that did come up was some of the moisture getting into the basement. I did ask him after that meeting to take a look at the building. I know they did it at the museum. They had a water problem down there. They dug a trench, waterproofed the outside walls, and installed some additional sump pumps. And he's going to get back with us with a figure of what that might cost.
At the new museum?
Yes, at the new building, or the remodel there. So that's basically it, whether we decide to do demo ourselves and trash removal or not.
The new number also took out doing anything in here other than flooring, correct?
It does not include flooring in here.
Someone gets city employees doing any demo work.
I'll second that.
Is there any way we can get an estimated cost amount, how much it would cost us to have the city employees do that work? Just to see, just to compare?
To do the whole project?
Yeah, the whole, no, demo.
The demo, it was I thought it was 13.
No, that's 13 for Donzie to do it. I just wanted to know how much, because one of the reasons behind it was brought up for them to do it was to save money on cost. Well, if it's still gonna cost us $8,000, you know, to do it, then yeah, I mean, let's just have Donzie do it, of course.
But Brian, it's a matter of you got policemen to do police work.
Yeah.
If you got them doing demo work, they're not doing what they were hired for. That's all I'll say.
Well, I agree.
You got the safety factor on it.
Yes.
And I stated that the other day as well, but it was brought up, so I want to at least express the option.
And former Alderman Couch also used to famously say, anytime we have our employees do anything, it costs us double because you're taking away from what they're
Right.
supposed to be doing.
That is the cost.
Yes. Nothing's free.
Exposure you have for injury.
It isn't free.
Right.
Amen.
So this includes the police department.
Yeah, this is basically from the entire police department and the front lobby area, securing that vestibule area.
But that
Just
is-
securing it, not doing any other upgrades?
No.
or work?
Well, no, there's walls and doors up there at the front entrance.
It's creating a foyer so that people will get service without having to come into the office. And then we have a control door for anybody who needs to come in.
But no other
Windows on
work.
either side.
But
But we're
no
not gonna
other
lower
work
the
on
ceiling or do.
the rest
Right,
of
no
the
other work.
building.
He
Okay.
gave us some options for lighting, and he also told us that in our flooring allowance and stuff, we could contact his contractor and get a price if we want to do more. But you know, that whole demolition thing, and Eric, you can maybe add in, I think at some point in time, there was basically, to try to keep this thing in a realistic number, there was maybe an offer to do some of it to make the job more affordable. It was, yeah.
I would just say, I don't believe that's commensurate with what job title and skill for these guys are. And not alone, do they have the tools? You know, or are we gonna buy tools for this one-off deal?
Eric? Yes. One second.
Was that putting a door in out here too?
Yes, I was adding an entrance door.
But we don't need the handicap.
Right.
But wasn't that the issue and stuff, is there was an offer?
It was brought up early on, and it seemed
Right.
like a couple times it was discussed, and you know, at some point, the street department doing the work again was discussed. At some point, I told Donzie that I didn't think that was appropriate, but it's continued to be in there as a $0 bid on this proposal with the assumption that we would do it. You know, again, I mean, we've certainly, I hope, demonstrated that we'll do whatever the city wants us to do to make things work, but I don't know that this is the most appropriate
Right.
My issue with it
use of our
is
staff.
if something gets messed up, then the contractor can say, well, your guys did that, or our guys can say, well, the contractor did that. There's no real accountability for something. If we have one person, one contractor do everything, they're responsible for everything.
And should one of my guys get injured, I don't know that workers' comp is going to look favorably on them doing work outside of the scope of their job performance or job description.
I think that's a done, I don't think we're gonna be all in, we're gonna be all in with this contractor, so.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
a bigger question. Now there's some questions about the basement and, do we want to spend $200,000 up here and not address the issue we have with the basement? Was always under the assumption that the bones of this building are good, you know, but I've not been in the basement. I've been in the basement, but it's just a little basement, you know, so.
I'd like to know it's gonna be dry and proper. I can't see, from my one seat on the board, I can't see doing anything until we can make sure it's right.
If you're looking for the basement to ever be totally dry, we might as well just quit talking about it, because where we're sitting in a low part of town, right next to the creek.
Right.
And it's never gonna be dry.
Can
Now, can it be
completely-
managed? Yes.
I can completely appreciate that. I don't feel like I'm doing my best job if I don't voice that opinion.
I agree.
And now I've done that and I feel better.
I think the water coming up from the water level in the creek is different than the water seeping down the cracks of the side. I mean, that's certainly an issue that, you know, that may need to have a drain field or something installed, or we have Helitech or Woods come in and look at it again, and you know, there are areas that have been covered with epoxy cracks in the basement that were covered, you know, when Woods came in initially. I believe that there's new cracks. I mean, when we get a significant rain, like I said, the walls are wet, they're running with water. So, I mean, it is an issue. You know, the factors that make that space unusable now are the water and the mold issues, as well as no real access. You know, one of those would be solved with this renovation, providing access from the inside of the building to the basement. And the proposal does include the sump pumps and trying to mitigate some of the conditions that cause the moisture down there. But I don't know that it actually solves the problem or fixes the problem of the water in the basement. But
So we will have to explore this further.
Right.
Okay, let's move on.
Yes, please.
I complete my report. Thank you very much. Eric, you need to come back.
hello.
Hey, Chief.
I don't have a tremendous amount to report here. You guys have been pretty busy. Everybody's doing well. We had, since the last meeting, I believe it's since the last meeting, we had a small accident in one of our vehicles. It was a single vehicle accident and completely our fault, so insurance was contacted on that. It was investigated by the sheriff's department. Essentially, an officer just turned too sharply down at 61 and St. Mary's Road and drove off the roadway and did some undercarriage damage to the vehicle, but it also deployed the airbag, which it didn't hit anything, but so that the insurance is looking at that now. So we certainly handled that administratively on our end as far as the avoidable accident, but just so you guys know, in case anybody asks you any questions or says anything about that.
What type of vehicle?
It's one of the Tauruses.
No injury.
No. And we've certainly followed all the protocols on our end as far as getting that investigated and checking the condition of the driver. Jurfet went well. I mean, we didn't have any major incidents. It wasn't as hot as it's been in years past, but it was certainly warm. So I think everything went well. Everybody seemed happy and healthy. So, anybody have any specific questions?
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have Sandra's report. She's not here tonight to report, so I'll take it. Steve?
Evening, everyone. All right. During our walkthrough for the street overlay project, we noticed that there was a small water leak up on Cedar Lane. There is, which is one of the streets for the street overlay. We dug down, we exposed the main, we repaired the leak. That is a transite line. I've spoke with Martin about it. That line would need to be replaced before a street will go down.
Are you able to stop the leak completely?
Yes. Yeah, the leak was stopped. We do have some maps in our system that show that transite either runs up to Rozier Street or up to Cherry Lane. One or the other. We have a Vactron rented for next week. We're going to come in, do some potholing, and figure out where that material, that pipe material stops.
That's asbestos, right?
Yes.
Worst case scenario, how many feet?
Concrete pipe with
How many feet
asbestos
is it?
fiber.
The worst case.
550. So
How big a line is it?
it's a 4-inch line there now. It connects to a 6-inch.
So it's $100 a foot is kind of the scope of the project.
Yeah.
We would have to advertise and put
Yeah.
a
So
bid out, get bids on it.
so that, I assume you guys would want me to put that in the paper next week. I'd like to get that line replaced before that portion of the asphalt is put down.
Can you check all of the areas we're talking about overlaying? Or do you already know?
Some of them have already been replaced. Some of them, we know the line material. We did an asbestos replacement program in 2015 and 2016. We replaced 3.5 miles of pipe in town. Those were the ones that we knew of. The lines that we're wanting to replace now are the ones that we have found since then. So,
Yeah, I'm not sure that answers the question. Are we proposing to overlay any other transite lines?
no.
Okay.
Right.
No other questions?
Thanks, Steve.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, takes us to committee reports. You want to talk about that meeting you had, Jim?
Yeah, me and Brian met with Sue and Martin, and me and Brian are going to have one more meeting. We'll have it to you early next week on our recommendations on the auditor's reports.
Good. Anybody else? Any committee reports? Any public comments? If no other public comments, at 6:47, we'll go into a public hearing that we will discuss. The mayor and the board will discuss, to hold a public hearing to allow citizens to comment on the proposed property tax rates to set by the city of St. Genevieve, a political subdivision. Tax rate shall be set to produce revenues with the budget for the fiscal year 2020 shows to be required from the property tax. Any public comments? So with that, we'll close it at 6:48. So at 6:48, we will open up another public hearing. The mayor and the board of aldermen in the city of St. Genevieve will hold a public hearing to consider a request from Jason Stackle and Ashley Crowley Stackle for a special use permit to operate a hair salon business at 996 Market Street. Property is currently located in an R2 residential district. Well, David's already at the board.
So the mayor basically described the special use permit to you. The application was on July 22nd. You have the timetable there. Adjoining property owners and applicant were notified on the 23rd. Police and fire were notified. Police chief and fire chief returned their determinations on the 24th and 25th. Meeting notice sent to the media on the 26th. Recommendation from planning and zoning was approval with the stipulations you see there in your packet. The vote was unanimous, 5-0-3. Public hearing was posted on August 22nd. And here we are, I'm sorry, was posted last week on the run date of 8/7, August 7th, and then the meeting tonight, August 22nd. Any questions for me, or the Stackles are here also? Yes, sir.
I've got one. Hold on just a second, Dave. Sorry.
I sent, if you didn't check your email, probably after 2 or 3 o'clock, I sent some pictures. Last time, when it was part of my staff report, the parking was questioned, and since then, a parking area has been installed, and I sent some pictures to you earlier this afternoon.
On page 3, paragraph 4 says future VRBO or something in the upstairs. Will that require different special use?
That will require another special use permit.
Okay.
Where's that at, Jim?
He asked where.
Oh, page 3, paragraph 4, right-hand side on the bottom. Page 3 is 6, Brian. Section D.
Dave, in a previous hair salon, we asked for some restrictions. Any of those apply here?
The restrictions that are in the terms and conditions there, they are slightly different because that previous one was in an R1 residential zone. This is an R2, so there are a few less restrictions.
Were there any terms and conditions that were contentious at all? Did we agree with everything? No issues whatsoever?
No, we're good with all of it.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Favor the board.
Yeah.
Close the public hearing at 6:52. Sorry about that. That you ordered.
You're right. Just keep us all line.
Somebody has to.
Yeah.
Right.
You gonna make a
I
motion?
will make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. Congratulations. Yeah. Work session minutes coming around. Closed session.
Thanks, sir. I'm just.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Takes us to old bills business. Second reading of bill number 4300. I'm going to read it, Bob, before we vote on it. You said you had some comments. An ordinance approving change order number 1 to the contract with Jokers Incorporated on the Chadwell Lane improvements. The amount not to exceed $20,400. Bob, you have a comment?
I had recently followed a tractor and trailer down that road, making a delivery. And of course, this is a 53-foot box van with a tractor of over 75 feet long. So I contacted Joker's Paving and asked them, just how expensive it would be to widen Chadwell Lane. He gave me just a verbal today. Basically, to dig down to what the road right now is about 15 to 16 feet wide average. In some places it's wider, some places it's narrower, but and I know we have school buses go up and down through there also, but with the increased traffic of the nursing home and kids cutting through there in the morning to get to school as quick as possible when they're late, I'd ask them to give me 2 figures and stuff to widen it to 20 feet, which basically they would dig down 12 inches, put 10 inches of base in, 2 inches of blacktop on top of that, and then also, in addition to this $20,400 figure, it would add 2 more inches of blacktop over the entire width of the road. So where they added on the road, there'd be 4 inches of blacktop and 10 inches of gravel. To go to 20 feet was $20,000. That also included some tree work up through there and stuff. To widen it to 24 feet would be $24,000.
It's a
And-
total?
That's in addition to this $20,400 overlay. That is just widening the road
All the way down to the bridge?
all the way down to the bridge, only if we do it at the same time that they're overlaying Chadwell Lane.
Martin, when we do, if we were to do something like that, do we have a right to do that, or do we have to approach each property owner along there to,
Well, that's what I don't know.
what is our
I
easement?
think it's just the road.
What?
I'm pretty sure if we go just the road, there's no easements through there.
Right.
So we'd have to acquire easements, which it isn't probably going to get done before they finish the work.
I don't know why we waited this late to discuss this. We've been working this project for a year. We went out for bids, and now we're changing and changing.
I had suggested this in a previous meeting, but nothing happened.
Well, I mean, I can pay a surveyor, it's basically to find out where the property corners are relative to the road. But as I've discussed before, in some cases we own right of way, in some cases our road are on easements, and the property corners come into the road without reviewing some record. I'm not sure if I can figure that out. I could maybe do it without a survey through the title company. If they've got a plat, we can find a plat. But
Then you still have to have survey work for whatever portion of your easement or your, or deeding fee simple to the
Right.
city.
if we're working within our right of way, we would
Oh,
require.
yeah, that's right, that's right. If-
This does
if we
not
have- if we have
affect
room to expand
the
that,
top project.
This is just from the,
This is just the overlay from there down.
Adding a couple of feet.
Could we, yeah, I mean, is it something that could be as simple as contacting every property owner along there and having them just sign off on it?
No.
It would need to be deeded to us.
I just hate to see the project come to a standstill. I'm with Jimmy, it's been going on for, and I get the traffic back there, I do, but,
Well, this is a change in scope, though. This
Right.
doesn't do anything
Yeah.
to the original scope. We're just talking
Yeah.
about this option. I've got at least one family in that area that would definitely want to know more, and I feel like I would have to deliver information on that before I could even comment on that, but that doesn't change the original scope.
Yeah, we're getting away from the original, what we contracted for. If you start modifying this thing, this will be 3 times now.
well, no, it's, the approach and everything's gonna go in.
Right.
It's just we're gonna hold up the asphalt job from
Right.
and if we wanna wait, if it's that simple with 20,000,
But
but
if the asphalt's going to be the last thing they're doing, and they've got 90-day construction period, we get that question answered before they finish.
This is strictly in the interest of everyone's safety.
I'll find out, I'll start looking tomorrow. But if I can't find, just from the record, from the public record, you want me to employ a surveyor to
How much would that cost
figure it out?
ballpark?
I don't know, $1,500 probably.
Didn't we agree to go concrete the whole thing? Or are we changing that back?
No, concrete for the
It's on the
Chadwell Lane
top,
improvements, then we're going to overlay.
overlay on
Overlay
the
the
roads
rest,
out there.
okay, gotcha.
You know, in future projects, I think we need to look at all aspects of public safety first and foremost.
It's only public safety because we got tractor trailers running up the road.
That
We
was
can't
my-
get in, we can't get in the other end because they put a crossing, and the nursing home moved to the back end, so I understand that.
And I was told by the railroad today, there will never be a crossing put in
Yeah,
there.
I'm satisfied.
All choices I didn't
Yeah,
make.
yeah,
Insurance or no insurance.
yeah,
Didn't make a difference now.
yeah. So you just want to table this end of it and,
You can still approve this change order, and then if that project goes through,
becomes
it'll
another
come back as a change order number 2 to the project,
Okay.
correct?
Because what is our time frame on the other projects? I didn't look at that. The other 4 streets that we're gonna pave. It's a matter of something we could do after those are done and maybe have time to look it up.
Okay, with that being said, then I'm gonna make a motion to approve Bill 4200.
do I have a second?
Sure.
Have a roll call vote, please.
Alderman Smith?
Yes.
Alderwoman Johnson? Yes. Alderman Donovan?
Yes?
Alderman Jokers?
Yeah.
Alderman Rainey?
Yes.
Alderman Jones?
Yes.
Alderman Prince?
Yes.
Alderman Wolfen?
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no's. Bill number 4300 now becomes ordinance 4229.
Thank you. Takes us to bill, second reading of bill number 4301, an ordinance authorizing the collection of municipal court costs. Second reading.
Motion to approve?
Second?
Roll call, please.
Alderman Wolfen?
Yes.
Alderman Prince?
Yes.
Alderman Jones?
Yes.
Alderman Rainey?
Yes.
Alderman Jokers?
Yeah.
Alderman Donovan?
Yes.
Alderwoman Johnson? Yes. Alderman Smith?
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no's. Bill number 4301 now becomes ordinance 4230.
Thank you very much. Takes us to new business. Bill number 4302, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute a real estate contract with Peter Group Real Estate LLC for the sale of 5 Trotman Industrial Court.
Second.
All in favor?
I have one
Aye.
comment.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
On Exhibit A of their real estate contract, under paragraph 1, they have it numbered as 5 Trout. Can we just make a change on that? That's not the right, correct spelling. It's Troutman, not Trotman. Can we just do a pencil? Mark?
The contract that they signed
Is
will
correct.
be corrected.
Okay.
That's fine.
Okay.
Okay, we have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Like to have a motion for a second reading?
Motion for a second reading?
Second.
Okay, we'll have a roll call vote, please. No. All in favor?
Aye.
Now I have a roll call vote.
No, now you have to read.
Oh my gosh. All right.
Give him a script.
Bill number, I need you to do it. 4302, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute a real estate contract with Beaver Group Real Estate LLC for the sale of 5 Trotman Industrial Court.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Now I think I'll have a roll call vote.
Alderman Jokers?
Yes.
Alderman Donovan?
Yes.
Alderwoman Johnson? Yes. Alderman Smith?
Yes.
Alderman Rainey?
Yes.
Alderman Jones?
Yes.
Alderman Prince?
Yes.
I'm
Alderman
still messed
Wolfen?
up.
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no's. Bill number
Yeah.
4302
I'm gonna mess it
now
up now
becomes
again.
ordinance 4231.
Takes us to bill number 4303, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute a real estate contract with Ryan and Jessica Huck for the sale of 2.16 acres on Progress Parkway.
Motion to approve?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'd like to have a motion for the second reading.
Motion for a second reading?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the second reading will be bill number 4303, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute a real estate contract with Ryan and Jessica Huck for the sale of 2.16 acres on Progress Parkway.
Motion to approve?
Second?
I'd like to have a roll call, please.
Alderman Jones?
Yes.
Alderman Prince?
Yes.
Alderman Wolfen?
Yes.
Alderman Rainey?
Yes.
Alderman Jokers?
Yes.
Alderman Donovan?
Yes.
Alderwoman Johnson? Yes. Alderman Smith?
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no's. Bill number 4303 now becomes ordinance 4232.
Thank you. Takes us to bill number 4304, an ordinance levying taxes for the year of 2019.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Like a motion for a second reading?
I'll make a motion for a second reading of this.
I'll second it.
What? We got a first.
Yeah, you'll have to go through with that, right, I guess?
Yeah.
I just had something I wanted to bring up about this issue real quick. So, in the notice of the public hearing, on the new public safety proposed rate, it says .2693.
That's right, so I was gonna make a comment on that.
Yeah.
I talked to Pam about that earlier today. What you vote for that's in the ordinance is slightly different number than what you have in the notice of public hearing. It's actually lower than what you've notified the public that you were proposing. It's a little convoluted, but when you have a tax increase that passes, it is based upon the number at that time, but then you get a calculation from the auditor's office that
State auditor.
State auditor's office, it may be slightly higher because depending on reassessment, that tax revenue may be adjusted. And so the adjusted number is actually higher than the tax rate that was specified in the ballot issue. So that's 0.2693. But what your ordinance would authorize
It's 0284.
Yes, which is 0.0009 less. The reason why that number was put in the ballot issue is to get the total levy at no more than $1 even. So that was the point behind that. I know that the general revenue levy cannot exceed $1 per assessed hundred valuation. It is believed that the cemetery, band, and park and recreation could then be above that amount, but I didn't want any issues with anybody claiming that we were above our maximum levy by going up over $1. And so that is why the amount, which was a really unusual amount, of whatever it is. And so the ordinance would approve a tax levy that is slightly less than what we notified the public we may impose. So it's a long way of saying you can impose a little bit higher, but I'm asking you not to impose that amount just so that the total levy is $1. That make sense? So I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think that...
Yeah, no, that was exactly what I was asking, so.
Okay. So we have a first and second on the second reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So on the second reading of 4304, an ordinance levying taxes for the year 2019.
Move approval.
Second.
Have a roll call, please.
Alderwoman Johnson?
Yes.
Alderman Smith?
Yes.
Alderman Donovan?
Yes.
Alderman Jokers?
Yes.
Alderman Rainey?
Yes.
Alderman Jones?
Yes.
Alderman Wolfen?
Yes.
Alderman Prince?
Yes.
8 yes, 0 no's. Bill number 4304 now becomes ordinance 4233.
Thank you. Takes us to bill number 4305, an ordinance of the City of St. Genevieve authorizing the mayor to enter into agreement with Milkers Incorporated, St. Genevieve, Missouri, to overlay portions of Cedar Lane, Seraphin Street, 4th Street, and 3rd Street, amount not to exceed $74.10 per ton.
I'll make a motion to approve this.
Oh, second.
Whoop, what's that? Okay.
First and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I thought you had a question.
Bill number 4306, an ordinance of the City of St. Genevieve, Missouri, authorizing a 2% convenience fee to be charged to all customers who pay for any fees using a debit credit card.
Motion to approve.
Second.
So,
Do you want me to explain that?
Please.
I'm not sure where this originated from, but it was brought to my attention just to make sure that we're authorized to charge this fee. This is just a reimbursement for the fee that the credit card companies charge us for those transactions. So it's not a tax or any increase, it's just passing along actual cost. Now, some of the individual fees that were charged are a little less than 2%, but some are more than 2%, and you factor in the administrative costs. We're trying to hit that sweet spot where we're just getting reimbursed for that extra expense that we have to incur. That's why we call it convenience fees. It's more convenient for the customer, but public entities can pass that cost along, that direct cost on to the person paying the fee that wants to do it by a credit device. That way, we're not paying a fee for them to use a credit device to pay the bill, because otherwise we're getting slightly less revenue than what we're supposed to be getting if they pay just the amount of the fee or whatever they have to pay the city. So it's not a tax, it's just reimbursement of expense.
And
so
it goes
this would apply to every,
Credit card use.
anything,
Debit credit card.
and how will we be informing people of this?
We'd have to.
Well, normally you'd have a sign right there where they're paying that says a 2% convenience fee will be charged on all credit and debit card purchases.
What about those of us that have auto pay on our water bill?
We're sending a letter out to anybody that currently uses that whatever, I'm trying to think of the word, that service.
Okay.
And we're also going to put something on the bottom of the utility card.
Okay.
Utility bill informing the customers.
That doesn't apply to those that have it debited from their checking account though, right?
No. And we are also sending that form along with the letter stating that they can use that service and there's no fee involved.
Okay, thank you.
And that's October 1st.
Correct.
Okay.
You had a first and a second? Do you have a first and a second?
I did.
All in favor?
Aye.
Takes us to bill number 4307, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a revised cooperative agreement with the St. Genevieve County for the collection of city taxes.
Motion to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Takes us to bill number 4308, an ordinance of the city of St. Genevieve, Missouri authorizing a no parking restriction on both the east and west side of South 10th Street. I got questions about that.
Probably needs to be cut in half.
Well, it don't even say how much. I mean,
It's,
246.
it states it in the
246.
body of the ordinance.
well, 246 feet puts it all the way down to Lucent, and there's 2 homes that are going to be involved in that. I don't think that's too much. Because the way I see it, there was always that building, there was tractor trailers probably coming in and out of Lucent, and it's always been an open street. And I know the one side, I think you do 100 feet, I think it'd be plenty enough.
Gary was the one that measured for it.
Did that 240 go all the way to Lucent?
Yes.
So that just, there's 2 homes right there that they can't park out in front of their house.
I just measured what Bob talked about at the meeting.
Yeah, I know, but I don't.
And I didn't realize it was that far.
No, we don't need to table it, but we need to change it. I don't think we need 240 feet. I think you're gonna give a truck that's gonna come around that corner, at least, you don't know about trucks. 100 feet? Or do you need 240 feet?
No, you don't need that much.
There are provisions in our code that allow for a resident parking permit even in a restricted area. So it wouldn't, that they could apply for the permit and it wouldn't affect the residents there.
But if they exercise that right, then you created the safety hazard you're trying to avoid.
I don't think it's a safety hazard. That safety hazard is getting the truck onto the street. The street has not been altered, for truck traffic. I mean, once they can make that corner.
That's fine.
Yeah, I think,
Can we delegate someone to go out and maybe measure a more proper length rather than just crap shooting here at the table?
It's an urgent.
It's not urgent, yeah.
Table it.
Table
Let's
it.
table it and.
You want to table it, Gary?
I was gonna say table it from the get-go. I make a motion to table this.
Second,
Table it until when?
next meeting?
Next meeting.
Whenever we get it.
I make a I'll be more,
Purpose of.
I'll be more specific. I make a motion to table, bill number 4308 with respect to getting better measurements to be presented at our next Alderman meeting.
Yeah.
Second.
You're welcome.
All in favor of that?
Aye.
Very good.
Thanks for working me.
Any other business, any communication? If there's no other business, no communication, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much.